Have you ever wondered who's actually running the show inside your body? Well, welcome to this elite health masterclass. Today, we're diving deep into a microscopic ecosystem that lives inside you, one that literally acts as the central control center for your entire physical and mental health. We usually think of our brain as the sole commander, right? But the reality of our biology is so much more interconnected than that. Deep down in your digestive tract is this auxiliary metabolic organ, and it possesses an expansive, mind-boggling repertoire of over 3 million unique microbial genes. This system regulates your mood, it dictates your metabolic rate, and it even defends you against systemic inflammation. And the absolute primary fuel for this entire control center? It's dietary fiber. Now, here is something truly shocking about the modern world. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors regularly consumed over 100 grams of diverse plant-based dietary fiber every single day. 100 grams. Today, in the industrialized world, we're consuming a mere fraction of that. It's a massive evolutionary mismatch. And this acute nutritional deficit isn't just causing a few everyday digestive complaints. We are literally starving our internal ecosystem. This starvation triggers a generational decline in microbial diversity, paving a direct path for the chronic diseases of modern life. So, to understand how we can reclaim our health, we're going to break this explainer down into 5 critical areas. The evolutionary fiber gap, your microbial digestive engine, SCFAs, the chemical messengers, the gut-brain connection, and finally, restoring the internal ecosystem. Let's start right at the beginning with Section 1, the evolutionary fiber gap. Think about how fascinatingly compartmentalized our digestive tract is. It's basically 2 completely different environments. On one hand, you have the small intestine. This area is anatomically optimized to rapidly hoover up simple sugars and easily digestible carbs. But because of its low pH and bile, it's a pretty hostile environment for microbes. But then you have the large intestine. This is a highly active, totally anaerobic fermentation chamber. You see, human DNA just doesn't contain the genetic code needed to break down complex plant fibers. So these structures pass completely intact right into the large intestine, where they act as microbiota-accessible carbohydrates. That's the sole food source for trillions of your microbes. So, what happens when we replace those complex carbohydrates with ultra-processed, fiber-deficient foods? Well, we literally starve that large intestine. We're triggering a localized extinction of key beneficial bacteria and causing a severe loss of overall microbial diversity. And it gets worse. Without those protective microbes, your gut barrier starts to weaken. That leads to a massive rise in systemic inflammation, metabolic endotoxemia, and a drastically increased risk of developing obesity and type 2 diabetes. Which brings us to Section 2, your microbial digestive engine. If human enzymes can't digest complex fibers, how in the world do our microbes pull off this monumental task? Well, they use something called polysaccharide utilization loci, or PULs for short. You can really just think of these as highly specialized, microscopic factory equipment. Certain gut bacteria, especially from the phylum Bacteroidetes, have these tightly regulated genomic clusters. Take this Sus-CD gene pair, for example. It encodes proteins that literally reach out, grab onto complex plant structures, and yank them right into the bacterial cell to be systematically dismantled by enzymes. It is an unbelievably sophisticated system of nutrient extraction. But make no mistake, the microbial world is a ruthless economy. Down there, we see a constant dynamic of public goods versus selfish utilization. Some primary degrading bacteria are kind of generous. As they break down the fiber, they release small fragments out into the environment. That creates a public good that fuels entire networks of other secondary bacteria. But on the flip side, some microbes are entirely selfish. They swallow massive carbohydrate chains whole to completely monopolize the energy, making sure their competitors don't get even a single crumb. So the crucial takeaway here is that microbial feeding is entirely deterministic. It is not random at all. The specific physical structure of the fiber you choose to eat dictates exactly which bacteria are going to thrive. For instance, when participants were fed inulin, their populations of bifidobacterium, which are famous for rapid fermentation, more than doubled, jumping from about 6.7% up to over 15%. But if you eat resistant starch from maize, it bypasses those fast fermenters entirely and specifically enriches specialized workers like Ruminococcus bromi, jumping from 1% to over 4%. These guys possess the unique machinery to crack open tough crystalline starch granules. You are quite literally selecting your internal workforce with every single bite. All right, let's look at the output in Section 3, SCFAs, the chemical messengers. Once these microscopic workers dismantle the fiber, they don't just consume it and that's it. No, they transform it. They output the true heroes of this entire story, short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. In a healthy, high-fiber colonic environment, these molecules are forged in a highly conserved canonical molar ratio. It's roughly 60% acetate, 20% propionate, and 20% butyrate. This specific ratio, it's no accident. It represents the perfectly balanced, optimal functional output of your internal ecosystem. And these are not just waste products. They are insanely potent signaling molecules that govern your entire health span. Each of these 3 distinct chemical messengers actually requires different bacteria to cooperate. Acetate is widely produced by a lot of different gut residents. Propionate is generated through highly specific pathways by families like Bacteroides. Butyrate, which is probably the most famous one for gut health, is primarily produced by a specific group of firmicutes. And here is where the magic of cross-feeding comes in. These butyrate producers often can't even survive on their own. They must physically consume the acetate that was produced by other bacteria just to generate butyrate. It's this beautiful, intricate, interdependent web of life. Now, all this robust fermentation has a brilliant side effect. It naturally lowers the luminal pH of your colon to a highly acidic 5.5 to 6.0. This drop reveals a hidden defense mechanism. It acts like an invisible shield, naturally weeding out dangerous, acid-sensitive pathogens while simultaneously creating the exact perfect environment for your beneficial, health-promoting bacteria to absolutely thrive. Your dietary fiber actively shapes the safety of your internal microbiome.
Okay, moving up to the macro levels, section 4. The gut-brain connection.
Let's map out this step-by-step biological cascade because it perfectly reveals the hidden mechanics of intuitive eating and satiety. When fiber turns into those SCFAs we just talked about, those molecules physically bind to specialized receptors right in your gut lining. This binding triggers a massive secretion of metabolic hormones, like GLP-1 and PYY. These are the powerful chemical signals that tell your body you are full. And yes, this is the exact same GLP-1 pathway that's targeted by today's modern blockbuster weight loss drugs, but it's naturally activated just by eating fiber. These hormones travel straight to your pancreas to help regulate blood sugar and directly into your brain to signal deep central satiety. Fiber physically transforms into the biological signal that tells you to stop eating. But the connection goes even deeper, and honestly, this is mind-blowing. Free short-chain fatty acids don't just hang out in the gut or float around the bloodstream. They physically cross the blood-brain barrier. Using specialized monocarboxylate transporters, they enter your brain directly. Once they are inside, they act as profound signaling molecules, modulating neuroinflammation, influencing the synthesis of vital neurotransmitters, and fundamentally transmitting the real-time status of your gut directly into the center of your cognitive function. However, like any advanced area of science, we absolutely have to look at the evidence with nuance. Take propionate, for example. In healthy individuals, it's great. It promotes satiety and it drastically lowers inflammation. But in certain disease states, it actually plays a complex dual role. We see paradoxically elevated levels of propionate in patients with diarrhea-predominant irritable bowel syndrome. Even more fascinating, researchers are actively investigating how abnormally high spikes of propionate, which are often driven by an overgrowth of very specific bacteria, might be linked to behavioral changes and neuroinflammation seen in autism spectrum disorder. So it really is all about delicate balance and the overall context of your microbial community. So, how do we fix it? Section 5, restoring the internal ecosystem. Knowing just how profoundly this entire system impacts everything from our daily mood to our long-term metabolism, how can we actively restore this microscopic ecosystem in the middle of our chaotic modern lives? Let's check out a landmark 24-week clinical trial that tackled this exact issue. Researchers took 140 sedentary adults living in urban environments. Basically, they took the standard modern human profile. They put them on a 2-pronged lifestyle intervention. A targeted daily functional fiber supplement, which combined resistant starch, inulin, and beta-glucan, and paired that with a simple, home-based, moderate-intensity exercise routine. The results? They were absolutely remarkable. The participants who combined the functional fiber with the exercise routine saw an impressive 12.8% increase in the Shannon Index. In microbiome science, the Shannon Index is how we measure biodiversity. That number represents a massive, objective restoration of a highly complex, healthy gut microbiota, and it happened in just 6 months. And honestly, the impact on their whole body health was even more stunning. Systemic, low-grade inflammatory markers just plummeted across the board. The intervention slashed high-sensitivity CRP, which is a massive indicator of heart health, by over 42%. And we saw drastic reductions in other major inflammatory cytokines too, with IL-6 dropping by over 35% and TNF-alpha down by nearly 29%. This right here is the literal definition of healthy aging and cardiometabolic risk reduction. By simply feeding the gut what it actually needs and moving the body, they rapidly extinguished the simmering systemic inflammation that drives almost all chronic disease. What we are looking at here is the ultimate synergy of our biology. Fiber and exercise, they don't just exist in isolation. They work in a completely synchronized cascade. You provide the raw structural materials by eating diverse plant fibers. You move your body to stimulate motility and metabolism. Then, your microbial workers take over and convert those fibers into huge amounts of SCFAs like butyrate. These metabolites then lock right into specific immune receptors, like GPR43, flipping the biological switch to actively suppress inflammatory cytokines across your entire body. So as we wrap up this masterclass, I really want to leave you with a massive shift in perspective. You are not just eating for one. You are the manager of an unimaginably complex, deterministic biological factory. Every single daily dietary choice you make dictates the survival, the diversity, and the biochemical output of this hidden inner ecosystem. So knowing exactly how all of this works, what are you going to feed them next?